What happens when a tennis legend publicly defends one of his greatest rivals? That's exactly what Novak Djokovic has done with Carlos Alcaraz. Amid a somewhat irregular start to the season for the Spaniard, the criticism hasn't taken long to surface. But Djokovic has spoken out with a message that is clear, direct, and powerful. What more do you want? At just 21 years old, Alcaraz has already achieved what very few tennis players manage in their entire careers. 4 Grand Slams, multiple ATP titles, and enormous pressure as the natural heir to Rafael Nadal. Today, we'll tell you how Novak stepped up to stop the criticism, and why his message should make us all reflect. In an interview with Eurosport Spain, Novak Djokovic didn't hesitate to defend Alcaraz from the growing criticism he's received on social media and in certain media outlets after some recent losses. "No, I don't understand it," said the world number one, visibly surprised by the harshness of the environment. Djokovic pointed out that Spain has a rich tennis tradition, with figures like Nadal, Moya, and Ferrero setting the standard. But he reminded everyone of something important: Carlos Alcaraz is only 21 years old. He's won 4 Grand Slams and many tournaments. What more do you want? Asked the Serbian with a critical tone. The truth is that the expectations placed on Alcaraz are so high that any defeat is seen as a failure. And Djokovic knows this all too well. He, too, was questioned in his early years, even though he later became the most decorated tennis player of all time with 24 Grand Slams. Djokovic's defense comes at a key moment for Alcaraz. The Mercian just won the Monte Carlo Masters 1000, defeating Lorenzo Musetti in the final with a spectacular 3-6, 6-1, 6-0. A display of his ability to rise to the occasion in major tournaments. But just days later, at the Barcelona Open, he lost in the final to Holger Rune, 7-6, 6-2. A defeat that some interpreted as a step back. However, Djokovic puts these kinds of matches in perspective. What he has done during this period is incredible, emphasized the Serbian, pointing out that Alcaraz's results are still elite. Noel's words not only defend the Spaniard but also remind us of something very important: every player needs time, development, their own journey. And Carlos Alcaraz's journey, despite ups and downs, is still that of a future legend. Carlos Alcaraz has won fans' hearts with his fearless style, natural talent, and humility on and off the court. But he has also been a victim of disproportionate expectations. That's why Novak Djokovic, a living legend of tennis, standing up for him carries enormous weight. Sometimes we forget that behind every great player is a human being, young, still growing. And if someone like Djokovic, who has lived under that pressure, tells us what Alcaraz has done is incredible, maybe we should listen. What happens when the greatest tennis player of all time bows to the talent of the new generation? At the Laureus Awards held in Madrid, Novak Djokovic not only fondly recalled his last visit to the capital but also left a message that moved many: his deep admiration for Carlos Alcaraz. Yes, the world number one, winner of 24 Grand Slams, spoke clearly about what makes the young Mercian unique. And the most surprising thing wasn't that he praised his titles, but his personality. Get ready to discover Djokovic's powerful message about Alcaraz and what he expects from him at the Mutua Madrid Open. Novak Djokovic landed in Madrid with 2 goals in mind: to break his title drought in 2025 and to face Carlos Alcaraz again. In an interview with RTVE, the Serbian recalled his last match at the Caja Mágica in 2022, where he fell to Alcaraz in the semifinals. "I hope to be in that round again because I'm looking for my best level," he confessed with excitement. But the most impactful part came afterward. When asked about the young Spaniard, Djokovic went beyond tennis. "He's a really good person, with great values," he said. And he wasn't just referring to Alcaraz but also his entire circle. He has an incredible family, with Juan Carlos Ferrero and his team. They're good people, and that's more important than anything else. In a circuit where talent is crucial but constant pressure can change anyone, Djokovic focusing on Alcaraz's humanity says it all. To him, his constant smile, his humility, and the way he conducts himself on and off the court are qualities that make him unique. That doesn't mean he overlooks his achievements. On the contrary. Noel called Alcaraz an extraordinary champion. He pointed out that, despite his youth, he already has multiple titles, including several Grand Slams. But even above his record, what Djokovic admires most is his attitude. "He always has a smile," he said with admiration, making it clear that in such a demanding sport, keeping joy is no small feat. Djokovic also took a moment to recall his battles at the Caja Mágica, especially against Rafael Nadal, whom he called his greatest rival of all time. In that context, it's easy to understand why he sees Alcaraz not just as a worthy successor but as a special figure on the circuit. The 2025 edition of the Mutua Madrid Open will be crucial for Djokovic. He hasn't won a single title this year, and the long-awaited 100th trophy keeps slipping away. But, interestingly, he's chosen to pursue it right here, in the tournament where he's already triumphed 3 times and where he hopes to face Alcaraz again, maybe in another unforgettable semi-final. Djokovic's words aren't just a courtesy. They're a deep recognition of the quality and charisma of Carlos Alcaraz. At a time when criticism flies at the slightest stumble, the world number 1 reminds us to look beyond results, that character, attitude, and values matter just as much as titles. And if someone with 24 Grand Slams says it, maybe it's time to listen. Alcaraz is not only building a brilliant career, he's leaving a legacy that inspires even the greatest. What happens when the coach who took you to the top questions whether he should continue with you? In the Netflix documentary Carlos Alcaraz, My Way, Juan Carlos Ferrero reveals an uncomfortable truth: the path to greatness doesn't always align with how one wants to live the sport. Alcaraz is a prodigy. 4 Grand Slams, world number 1, global idol at just 21. But is that enough to become the greatest of all time? Ferrero thinks not. And he says so without filters. Today we analyze the most honest confessions from the documentary that have sparked debate in the tennis world. Can you become a legend without sacrificing everything? The Netflix docuseries shows, for the first time and unfiltered, the tension between Carlos Alcaraz and Juan Carlos Ferrero. It's not a crisis, but a clash of philosophies. In one of the most powerful scenes, Ferrero warns, "I want him to be the greatest of all time, but I don't know if I can go on like this." The conversation, almost like between father and son, revolves around commitment and professionalism. Ferrero reminds Carlitos that the world of sports is sacrificial, and that to reach the numbers of Nadal or Djokovic, you have to be a slave. Harsh but honest words. Ferrero doesn't hold back. He wants his pupil to give it his all. Meanwhile, Alcaraz confesses, sometimes he plays out of obligation, sometimes he loses focus, sometimes he feels trapped by the rankings. "I want to be the greatest of all time, but I also want to enjoy my life," he says. And that's where the dilemma begins. Can you have it all? Ferrero not only compares levels of dedication, he directly points to the examples of Djokovic and Nadal. The Serb, he says, takes care of every detail: food, rest, training. Rafa, for his part, has epitomized total commitment for 2 decades. That's the standard he lays out. But Alcaraz wants to build his own story, his own way. He says it, repeats it, defends it. He wants to win without giving up his circle, his friends, his freedom. For him, the key is balance, not turning tennis into a burden. That modern and human vision contrasts with the traditional method that brought him to the top. Ferrero, while admiring his talent, expresses doubt. His understanding of work and sacrifice is different from ours. So different that it makes me doubt whether he can become the best in history that way. For him, the hard part isn't winning, it's staying at the top. And without total commitment, that, according to Juanqui, might not be possible. What's clear from this documentary is that not everything is black and white. Ferrero isn't criticizing Alcaraz's talent, but rather the uncertainty of his approach. And Alcaraz doesn't reject the demand, but he wants to live the sport at his own pace. Maybe this tension is necessary. Maybe this tug-of-war between ambition and freedom is what will define the new era of tennis. Alcaraz doesn't want to imitate, he wants to innovate. But Ferrero knows, like all champions do, that the summit isn't conquered without sacrifice. The big question is, how far is Carlitos willing to go? Is Carlos Alcaraz's participation in the Mutua Madrid Open at risk? Just days before one of the most anticipated tournaments of the year on Spanish soil, the current world number 3 has raised doubts about his presence due to a recent injury. The Mercian, who just played the final of the Conde de Godó, not only lost the title to Holger Rune, but also left with physical discomfort that could keep him from competing at the Caja Mágica. Will he choose to rest? Or will he try to compete despite the pain? Today we tell you everything Alcaraz has said and why his decision is generating so much uncertainty and anticipation. Carlos Alcaraz is used to facing the toughest rivals on the circuit, but this time his opponent is invisible: pain. After his demanding performance in the final of the Barcelona ATP 500, the Mercian raised alarm bells by admitting, "I thought I would feel better, but I'm a bit sore." A statement that's worrying, especially with the Mutua Madrid Open just around the corner. Alcaraz has confirmed that he will undergo medical tests to determine the exact extent of his discomfort, and that he'll make a decision with his team. "You have to listen to your body," the player acknowledged, making it clear that, although he wants to compete, his health comes first. Uncertainty has grown among fans, who hope to see him shine on home soil. Carlitos himself admitted, "I'm going to do everything I can to be in Madrid." But at the elite level of tennis, enthusiasm isn't enough. Physical demands, a packed calendar, and accumulated fatigue could work against him. And while it's not a serious injury, it could be enough to compromise his performance. Or even his participation. But amid the tension and concern, Alcaraz also showed his more human side. In a recent interview, he talked about one of the most special moments of his career, his victory at Roland Garros. "I came from a really bad period. In the first training sessions, I didn't even know if I could hit my forehand," he confessed. He added that winning that tournament was a wonder, a mix of dreams fulfilled and doubts overcome. With that same spirit, he wants to arrive in Madrid, although he doesn't deny that his body needs attention. Interestingly, despite everything, the Mercian doesn't give up on enjoying life. Breaking with the robotic athlete stereotype, he candidly admitted that he goes out partying now and then. He even revealed his favorite drink: "I'm loyal to gin and lemon, although it depends on the day." These statements have sparked debate between those who believe a champion must be an example of total dedication and those who applaud his authenticity. The truth is, Alcaraz is forging his path his own way, as he has said more than once. He enjoys, competes, wins, and also allows himself to celebrate. Will we see Carlos Alcaraz at the Mutua Madrid Open? There's no definitive answer yet. Everything will depend on medical results and how his body responds in the coming days. What's clear is that the Mercian is committed, but also aware that the road to the top is long, and you only get one body. Alcaraz wants to compete, yes, but he also wants to do it with guarantees. Because he knows that in Madrid, it's not just about a tournament, it's about the love of his people, his prestige, and his place in a demanding season. What do you think? Should Carlos Alcaraz prioritize his health and rest, or compete in Madrid even if he's not at 100%? Let me know in the comments. If you enjoyed this video, hit like, subscribe, and turn on notifications to stay updated on everything happening with Carlitos in this clay court swing. See you on the court. Or in the stands waiting for his return. Until next time.